What's going on? It is Monday, October the 4th of 2021. Rectember is over. We are in October now. So what's October going to do? What can we expect? What can we look out for? Bitcoin has been on the move. Cryptocurrencies have been on the move this weekend. And as we discussed the other day, the last couple of weekends, price action pumped into the weekends leading up and then sold off throughout the weekend. As you can see, going over the last couple of weeks, this is hourly action here leading into the weekend, and we had some sell-offs over the weekend. But this weekend was a little bit different. We had a little bit of a downward action leading into Saturday, and then it's just been kind of uphill ever since. So what is going on and what's causing this price action? And we are looking at Bitcoin right now, testing that 49,000-50,000 level, trying to get some continuation. We've been up as high as 49.5 today, all the way down from this $40,000 level before the start of the weekend. And here's something that's interesting. So one thing to look out for. So everybody who's following the crypto space is aware of Plan B, stock to flow model. Plan B, you can find Plan B on Twitter, planbtc.com, where he has some interesting extensive information about the stock to flow model, how he came up with it, how it works. A lot of great research, a lot of great articles there. You might want to read that. But Plan B called for August close at 47. Check that box. September close at 43. We checked that box. Next target's October 63, November 98, December 135. Now, these are base floor numbers that Plan B is calling for. And it started back in August. July, June, May, April, he was not accurate. So the numbers were off there. So now we have to wonder, okay, if it wasn't accurate up to August, why did we hit the number pretty much right on in August? I mean, right on and right on in September. And when did we hit it in September? So this is some very interesting information here to kind of think about and take a look at. So September 30th, we were hovering around $42,000. We were on the 29th, we were down around 40,950. Then we bumped up to 42,000. And it's all of a sudden, right at the end of the day, price bumped up into that $43,000 level right around midnight on September 30th, right into October 1st. So we bumped up right around here. We were hovering around 40,000, and all of a sudden on September 29th, price bumped up to 43,000, not September 30th, but September 29th. And it was right around midnight when that price bumped up to get us to the end of the month to close at that 43,000. So one of the questions you have to ask, and we had a lot of taps around that $40,000 level. So we were looking for potentially a little bit of a bounce there, or potentially continuation of the downside. So you have to ask yourself, if we hit 43,000 right there at the last day of the month in September, why is that? And same thing back in August. When you go back and look at August, the market makers and the large investors, the whales in the space, they obviously are aware of this, and they are aware of this model, and they're aware of this price projections going into October. So they know that everybody is fully expecting a minimum of 63,000 in October. So all of the talk out there right now, everybody's saying is we're going to hit 63,000, is that that's our ceiling. But Plan B, just to be clear, this is his floor price in terms of his targets. He's always said these are the base floor prices. When you look at the stock to flow model, there's a big wide variance in there. We are supposed to be over 100,000 right now, according to the stock to flow model. So we're trending on the bottom line of the channel. And I think everybody's fine with where we're at in terms of a base, not necessarily where we came from in spring of last year or this year, but definitely for where we are right now based on where we came from in June, July, bottom of that 28, 29,000. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. So just something to be aware of. All of the news, information, charts, projections, everything that you're seeing in the crypto space, the large investors in the space are aware of as well. So they know full and well, everybody is targeting a minimum of 63,000 by the end of this month. They know full well that everybody is targeting 98,000 for next month and 135,000 by December. So all eyes are on that. And right now, it looks like we're making a move in that direction. Bitcoin is trying to get to that 63,000 level. So the question we have before us is that going to happen? Are we going to, drop back down before we continue on, or will we continue straight up from here? And nobody knows the answer to that, but it's very interesting that one individual and one individual only on the face of the earth has been able to predict the bottom exact number 2 months in a row that the price action of Bitcoin would close on. So very interesting. So the question is he prophetic, or are the market makers and institutions using that model for price action for a bigger move down the road? So we're going to have to wait and see how that shakes out. So let's take a look at the daily price action and what we've been looking at. We'll talk about how do you trade this, because it's a very dangerous time to trade right now. It's a very tricky spot in the market. It's ranging just like we were doing down here. This price action here is very similar to this price action here. We now have this bounce. So this very well could be this bounce here. So we could very well be repeating this whole price action segment, just kind of a mini version of it here, where we dropped, bounced, dropped again. Now we bounced up to a top, and then it could roll over and repeat this whole cycle all over again. I know a lot of people got caught right up here in that May timeframe, buying in, thinking just like now that this was going to go to 100,000 and 200,000 and all-time highs past 65,000 level right here. And then the market reversed and they sold down here, potentially all or half or most of their holdings. And then the question is, where are we going to go from here in terms of bouncing back? And if you bought here and you sold here, it's very difficult for you to want to buy back in at these lower levels. But what you have to ask yourself is, what's the worst case scenario? So we've seen a floor put in right here at that 28, 29,000 level. So if Bitcoin did come back down, and if this is all just a false move and a setup and Bitcoin's going to retrace and come back down, how far can it go? Well, under normal circumstances, we saw a lot of support right here, $28,000, $29,000 level. There's a lot of confirmation on both sides of this move here over from last year in December all the way across into this year down to June, July, and now this bounce where price action did not get below 29,000. There's a lot of institutions, a lot of big investors involved in the game now that have a lot at stake if this price gets below 28, 29,000 that may have not been when it sold off in March of last year and we hit that $4,000 bottom right at the beginning of that crash in March when all the markets sold off, traditional markets and cryptocurrencies, and we had a little wick down to that 3,800, not 38,000, but 3,800 level. So it was only March of 2020, a little over a year and a half ago, that Bitcoin was at $3,800. And then it rallied all the way up, due in large part to the liquidity provided to institutional investors, all the way up to that 65,000, and a lot of leverage in the space, which is what we're having now. So a lot of these moves are stop hunts and short squeezes, taking leverage out of the system. So right now we've got a lot of shorts on and we've got a lot of longs on. So the question is, who's going to win that game? And we saw what happened the last time there were a number of longs put on at the peak of this 53,000 move. We dropped right down, bounced, dropped down again. So we could be very well be repeating these patterns and just kind of rolling over again a little bit more. The question is, if it does do that, where's our floor? And I was kind of targeting this 37,000, 38,000 area in terms of if we do roll over, if this is a false move, and if we cannot get past $50,000, if Bitcoin cannot break $50,000, meaning not just wick above it, but break, close above it and continue on, because again, all we have right now is another lower high, right? Even if it closed right here, this is your last lower high, and this is a lower high right now. This is your lower high, and we have now we have lower lows closing back below these lows here. So if this can close up potentially above 53,000, once you get up there, now you have another lower high and you have a higher low in this little trend here. And we are still in a downtrend, because again, until you cross back over 65,000, you're still in a downtrend. You're still putting in lower highs and higher lows until that threshold's crossed. So just remember that. And we can have a lot of bullish price action. You can have a lot of great fundamentals going on, but until you cross 65,000, you have not completely reversed the trend. Now you can reverse on small timeframes within this move, like we've been doing, where we had this severe downtrend, lower highs, lower lows. Then we reversed with what is that? Essentially a new lower high and new higher lows within this trend, and reverse that immediate price action. But until we're clear of 65,000, we are not necessarily reversing this entire move within this cycle right now. And Bitcoin has been in an uptrend since its existence, as have all asset classes, all of the markets, real estate, traditional markets, commodities, gold, precious metals, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. Everything has been on an uphill trajectory, except for a couple of things. And that's what I want to make sure you're aware of in terms of how to trade the markets and what's going on. There's been a lot bigger moves in the altcoin space than in Bitcoin. And some of these altcoins have been just absolutely ripping and going on parabolic runs, setting new all-time highs and things like that. And what you got to be careful in the altcoin space is, if we do see a downtrend, if we do see a larger bear market, which a lot of people are calling for once we reach, new all-time highs of 100,000, whatever that's going to be this cycle, and whenever that's going to be, a lot of people are calling for a bear market. I don't know that I agree with any kind of a long-term sustained bear market, given the fundamentals and where the space has evolved to. I think you might see more sideways consolidation versus a big downtrending traditional bear market where you just downtrend, downtrend, downtrend. You could have a downtrend like we're in now that could just settle in somewhere to base over a series of months. Then you turn around and reverse. And we saw that in traditional markets. When you go back and look at the most recent would be the great financial crisis of 2008 and 9, where we had a longer sustained downtrend over a series of months, probably about 4, 5, 6 months before we reached the bottom. Then it's been pretty much uphill ever since then, with a few little corrections here and there. And given the price action of traditional markets, corrections can come in the form of 10 to 20%, and you're still okay. We're down just a little bit today in traditional markets, not much to speak of, about 1% across the board, but that's kind of how it starts. And when you look at the charts of traditional markets, it kind of adds up. It creeps up on you. It starts out where you're down 1 or 2% today, you bounce a little bit tomorrow, you're down another 1 or 2%. Next thing you know, you start rolling over and you're putting in lower highs and lower lows. And that's kind of where we're at on the Dow. That's kind of where we're at on the NASDAQ. You can see everything rolling over. That's where we're at on the S&P. We've broken major trend lines and we've reversed trends in the markets. The question is, are we going to continue on that trend, and what can we expect? This is the Dow transports, and then the dollar. The dollar is a big one to watch. The dollar has been down here the last few days. It was on an uptrend last week when Bitcoin was dropping. Now it's down, Bitcoin's up. So capital and liquidity is rotating through the markets. Right now it's rotating into Bitcoin out of the dollar, and it's rotating out of the stock markets into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And what I was talking about with the altcoin space is you want to be very careful, because a lot of these, whether we go into a bear market or not, whether or not that's sustained or we continue with sideways price action, a lot of the altcoins will not survive. A lot of those that are here today will not be here 6 months from now, a year from now, but a lot of them will. A lot of your top market cap altcoins will. Some of them are just, straight up just junks and rug pulls and scams, and some of them are legitimate projects that just become obsolete. So we won't know until we get there. So be careful with those. Make sure you research these projects you're investing in. Altcoins obviously are anything other than Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Matic, Solana, Sushi, Dot. They've all been on their runs lately, and everything's kind of moving together, as goes Bitcoin, as goes the rest of the markets. Here's the total altcoin market here, not including Bitcoin. Pretty much the same kind of price action look as Bitcoin here over the last few weeks. This is on the daily. So again, we're putting in right now lower highs, and now we have a lower low. So unless this closes up above 53,000, at the end of the day, that's just another lower high. So that's what we're looking for. And it's kind of been up and down today. It looked like it was going to continue on for Bitcoin, then it dropped. And, we've had a little pump here the last few hours, and we keep getting rejected at 49,000. We cannot seem to get over, Bitcoin cannot seem to get over 50,000. Resistance, support. What is that? Resistance is selling. So there's a lot of people trapped in Bitcoin, bought back in some of these other areas where Bitcoin was up, been trapped in the trade. As soon as it hits 50, that's their number and they're getting out. And support is buying. So who's buying here and what's the purpose of this? So this is a liquidity grab. There's not a whole lot of volume supporting any of this price action right here. Your volume comes in on the pumps, and that's obviously your larger investors pumping price action up to unload on these lower accumulation phases on retail, buying up here into what they think is strength, thinking they're buying into that continuation of a trend. So you don't want to buy up here. Okay. If you're looking up here and Bitcoin is getting resisted at 50,000, you don't want to be buying in here. You want to wait till confirmation of a reversal where it closes above 50,000 and moves onward and upward from there before you can look at this as a floor. This needs to be flipped into support, that 50,000 level. Right now, we just keep getting bounced off of it. And you really don't want to be buying into these levels either. You want to buy down here when it looks like all bets are off, Bitcoin's just going into the tank, and you just feel like, man, this thing could just go lower. That's when it's time to buy. And then what you have to look at is, where did we come from and where could it possibly go? So we came from 53,000, 52,000. So you have to reasonably believe that we're going to go back and test that resistance level again around 50,000 like we're doing now. Where did we come from? We came from, if you go back to July, in June, we came from 29,000. So it seems like our worst case downside, because we had a lot of taps at that 28, 29,000 level over a number of months where it just never got below that. But that's probably, unless there's a severe incident in the economy, a severe market accident, we're probably not going to go below 29,000 given reasonable market conditions. There's just too many investors, too many whales and institutions involved at that price level to let it go any lower. And they have the firepower to keep that price propped up. As you can see, that's how this price has been moved up here. They've generated this liquidity during this markup phase to be able to keep the price supported. So if we did drop down, you have to basically relatively assume your floor is going to be 30,000. Right now you're selling 50. So if we're dropping down into the 40s, you're pretty safe in those areas because your worst case is 20, 29, and you're pretty much going to bounce from there back up to the 50 range. So you've got a lot of exits from that standpoint if you're buying at these bottoms here. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to buy these pumps necessarily right here, because you never know when that's going to reverse on you. And that happened over and over throughout this move. But once you get a couple of taps, at least 2 to 3 taps on the bottom, you can buy these lower points and put in your stop losses and get out, buy the low, put in a stop loss, things like that, so that you can manage that downside risk. And then if you're a long-term holder and you're dollar cost averaging, the old saying, buy the dip, become the dip. What that means is if you're buying dips on a downtrend and the market stays down for a while, as you buy those lower lows that are put in along the way and you're staying down at the bottom, then that kind of, you become the bottom at that point. But if you're buying those dips on the way up, as the market is moving in an upwards trend, well, then you're increasing your holdings in your position to exit at the top at some point. But you want to be careful buying the dips in a rising market. You're lowering your basis if you're buying the dips in a downtrending market. But if it gets stuck at the bottom for any length of time, then it's going to be difficult for you to exit. But ultimately, these are the areas that you want to buy. You don't want to buy these pumps necessarily. You want to buy these pullbacks, especially in an uptrending market, pullback, and in a downtrending market, the big pullbacks. That's the areas that you want to be looking for to get in and get out of if you're trading, swing trading, day trading, whatever that is. And again, I'm not a technical analyst. I'm not a trader. I'm an investor, and I'm an opportunistic investor. And my career, I invest in real estate companies, things like that. And to me, Bitcoin is basically property. That's how the IRS classifies it. So I just look at this as digital real estate, digital property. It has a value. It has a low end value. It's got a top end value, and it's got a reasonable expectation of an appreciation. So those are the things that I'm looking at in terms of the moves that I'm making. I look at it just like I look at a real estate deal in terms of, a property flip or something like that, versus obviously there's no cash flow long-term like that. The rest of the altcoin market to me is just like businesses, right? It's like investing in businesses. A lot of those are functioning assets that have income. They are functioning companies behind them with income. Axie Infinity, I think, has had some record-breaking income. And you can see this is one of the coins that just went on a parabolic move here recently over the last couple of days. So right in here, down when it was low, when things looked like they were kind of bleak, and then it just went on a parabolic run. Avalanche has been on a big move lately. The problem is if you're buying up in these areas without confirmation of continuation, then you can get caught, things can reverse, and you've got big downside. So you want to look at, if you're buying into the strength, what's your biggest downside? Right here, it was at $9.50 at one point. Now you're up at $75. So you don't want to run the risk of buying something in the 60s and 70s when it was down at 10 bucks, a few weeks ago. So those are the types of things you want to look at in terms of your valuations and what types of investments you're looking to get into, and where your potential downside risk is, what your potential upside is. And if you're a long-term holder and you fully expect, an asset like Bitcoin, most likely is a longer-term asset that obviously is not going to go away. The question is, how low could it potentially go? We've already seen in a pandemic, it went down to $3,800. In general downtrending market, the floor in a normal market cycle with a lot of liquidity was put in at 28, 29,000. So the question is, can it breach that without a market incident driving price action lower? And if we did have a big systemic issue in the market, how low could it go? And we see that 3,800 was the floor there. So what you want to do is mitigate that risk and put in your stop losses as the market climbs. If you're buying in here expecting 63,000, you want to put stop losses in along the way and increase those stop losses as the asset increases in price. If you get stopped out, fine, wait for the pullback, buy back in, ride it up again. So if you look at that standpoint, let's say you've exited and you waited for the bottom here and you bought back in, you can sell right there. You can buy this bottom, maybe you hold on there, you sell at this point, or wait and buy this bottom. You can sell where there's a pullback, or just kind of keep on going for the whole trend, and then sell here. You get a little bit of a pullback, maybe buy back in at the bottom there. So that's how you increase your holdings. Buying low, selling high. You don't have to get the exact bottom, exact top, but it's you can kind of pinpoint these because it'll drop and tap 2 or 3 times, and then it continues on, right? So you drop, bounce, tap, another tap, and then you're off to further price action, further upside. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm navigating the cryptocurrency markets. Again, to me, it's just like investing in real estate. It's like flipping real estate, flipping properties, trading properties. And then these little projects here, they're like stocks, right? You're just like buying penny stocks or something for a lot of these, or stocks in some of the companies. Some of them are in the pennies. Some of them are obviously bigger dollars. And you can get a lot of really good upside in altcoins. And I've played with a few of them during this last run, and Solana, Sushi, Uniswap, Filecoin. So I rode some of those up, not all the way. I rode them up, exited at the pullbacks, got in some other ones, rode them up, exited at the pullback. So I've kind of been rotating around through some of these altcoins. Some have set all-time highs, some have not. So the real question is, when is the market cycle over? And generally what happens is, once Bitcoin peaks, all of the altcoins will peak 2 or 3 months after that, setting new all-time highs, going absolutely parabolic. You can put money into almost anything that's moving and you'll do well. We haven't seen that huge parabolic move in all assets and Bitcoin and the altcoin space at scale. So we're still kind of ranging, still trying to figure ourselves out here in terms of the market, a little bit of price discovery. And until we get that move and we break that 65,000 level, until Bitcoin gets back above that, then we are not necessarily going to be looking for that huge move in the altcoin market. And the real question is, was 65 the top for this cycle? Is that the near-term top that we're going to see for a while, or is there going to be continuation to that 63.90 and 63.98, $135,000 level like Plan B is calling for? Are the market makers and the institutional investors going to take it to that level, or are they using those targets now to bring people in at this 50,000 level, thinking, man, I'm going to be at 63 at the end of the month, I'm going to be at 98 the next month, and 130? I mean, that's a good deal, right? If you can buy in here at 50,000 because you're going to be at 130 in 90 days, that's a great deal. Question is that going to happen? And we don't know. Nobody knows. Plan B has been right so far for the last 2 months. One more thing that I will leave you with, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is the market makers and the institutions have that information. They're well aware of it. They're watching it, and they know that everybody in the crypto space is watching it. So just understand that. And here, let's talk about the moon phases. I know a lot of people have been asking about that. And these moons up at the top here are your dump moons. These are the new moons. The moons at the bottom, they have the colors opposite, but these are your full moons and those are your pump moons. And we can go in here and we can have some fun, and we can change the settings here on these moons so that they look a little bit better. Let's take care of these backgrounds here so you can see these moons. And let's make the full moon, let's make that a green moon. And the new moon, that's the bad moon. Let's make that a red moon. Okay. So you got your pump moon and your dump moon. So what do we have coming up here in the next day or so? We have a new moon. What does that mean? Look what happened the last time we printed a new moon, down. And how big of a move was that down? That was basically, that was about a 30% move. So we dropped from, about 30%. So we dropped from 52,000 all the way down to a low of 39. So what are we going to see this time? And you can see some of these dumps have only been about 5 or 10%. Some of the pumps have been minor. This was our pump moon here. It struggled a little bit, but it played out at the end. We're going into October. We have Halloween coming up, and the moons are doing their job. So if you follow the moon phases, this is not something I follow. This is not something that I use. I just find it interesting and fascinating. And I know a lot of people use astrology in business. A lot of people study it in business. Some very successful investors have studied astrology, run their businesses and their investments using the guide of astrology. And I know people that there's, you can get full-on degrees in it. So, but this is not something I follow. However, based on the effectiveness of it, especially during these last number of months and last year or so in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, it looks like this is something you might want to think about. So we do have a new moon printing. Price action is stalling out. So are we going to get another little dump here coming up the next few days? Generally, Mondays and Tuesdays over the past few weeks have been down days. As you can see, a lot of these dumps came over a Monday, Tuesday timeframe, weekend, Monday, Tuesday. So keep an eye on that, and watch out for that new moon that is printing right now. And let's see what that does to price action. Sometimes it's right on it. Sometimes it's delayed a couple days, like you see over here. So we shall see what happens, and if that has an effect and an impact on the markets. So until the next video, I hope you found that informational, entertaining. Those, again, these are, some of the things. Now, again, the moon phase is just fun. I find it interesting. I like to keep all my options open, all my ideas open. And you really want to make sure that you're looking at both sides of the market, both sides of the conversation, bull or bear. It doesn't matter. The market's either going up or going down or going sideways, right? So it's trending up, trending down, trending sideways. And what you want to do is you want to take in information from both sides of the conversation so that you can make intelligent decisions. You can plan for that potential upside, but your downside risk. So if I'm evaluating a real estate deal, if I'm evaluating a business acquisition, any other investment, I'm going to want to know what's my full potential, what's my downside, how long is it going to take me to get there, so I can calculate return on investment over time, because it's all about making the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of energy and effort possible. That's what business and investing is all about. Velocity of cash flow, investing with the momentum of the trend, investing into strength, selling into strength, not investing into weakness and selling into weakness. You want to make sure that you've got you have the ability to maximize all the opportunities. The only way to do that is to look at both sides of the equation rationally, and then always ask yourself, how am I wrong? You have to assume you're wrong and look to prove yourself wrong versus proving yourself right. There's all kinds of great fundamentals out there. All of the on-chain data looks great. All the long-term fundamentals in the space looks great. The only problem is the price action does not match the on-chain metrics and the fundamentals. So the question is, Will that catch up? Will that match up? And when will that match up? So that's the only thing out there that, everything looks like it's bullish. Everything looks like we should be heading to new all-time highs. And all of that lines up except for the actual movement in the price. So that's what I'm keeping my eye on. Why is the price not moving exponentially with everything else being so bullish and indicating that it should be? So that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for proof there and confirmation of those moves before I'm looking for any kind of long-term big plays. And again, straight to the moon parabolic action is going to give us that answer if and when that occurs. So that's what we're looking for. Closing above right now, 50,000 for continuation, and holding that support at that 47.5, 48,000 level. If it starts breaking down into 46 and closing down in there, then we can look for continuation to the downside. If we're closing above 50,000, this is Bitcoin, then we look for continuation to the upside. Keep an eye on the new moon, see what that does. You can pull that up on TradingView. All the charts that I use are TradingView. And again, I'm not a technical analyst. I'm just an investor. These are how I look at things. I've been involved in and investing in the crypto space since probably 2016, 2017. When I heard about it before that, but I didn't really do anything with it until around then. And the only time I get into traditional markets are at bottoms like the March lows. The lows back in 08, 09. I got in right at the bottom when it looked like the Dow everybody thought was going to zero. So I know Dow was 6,000, S&P was 600. That's when I made my moves in the stock market. I made some moves in the stock market when we bottomed here in March. So those are the things I look for. I look for the big bottoms in the assets. Now, cryptos are different because they're so volatile. They're exponential. They're up and down, up and down. So you can get in and get out. And you've got the same kind of thing going on a regular daily, weekly, monthly basis in crypto. So crypto is a lot more fun because you can make some big moves, 10, 20, 30% in and out in a day, 2 days, a week, things like that. So that's been kind of fun playing around with that. And, but ultimately what I'm looking for is that big, huge parabolic bull market ending cycle where everything just goes parabolic. You can throw money into almost anything and make money. So that's what we're on the lookout for. Hopefully we will see something like that soon.